So this week, we're going to do quick breads. Quick breads are banana breads, pumpkin breads, anything that is assembled quickly and is baked with a chemical leavener. Now, I have some of our leavening agents here, just a scaffold on future lessons. Banana bread's gonna have baking soda. Sometimes breads have baking soda and baking powder. We know yeast is our biological leavener because that's alive. And we know eggs, because eggs whites contain a lot of water. What happens to water when they're in the oven? They turn to steam, the steam expands. So that is a natural leavener. You'll notice also that my eggs were a little cold, so I soaked them in a little warm water. I have my two prepared pans here, which are nice and easy. My flour. We're gonna start with the sugar and the butter. We're gonna start creaming that. We have let that go for 3 or 4 minutes, medium speed. Now, unlike our cookies and our cakes, when we add the bananas, which are going to be added with the eggs, we're going to combine them. You see we have 3 bananas here in the container. Going to mash these up. We're still using the paddle, so in essence, we're still creaming in a sense. But this is not going to be as together and as creamed as, say, a cookie or cake batter. Because why? We have a lot of moisture, a lot of water in the bananas. And we have a lot of water in the eggs. So the ratio is a little bit different than our cookies or cake batters. But why do they call it quick breads? Because they come together quickly. Items with yeast, which is our biological leaveners, take hours and hours to rise. They have to rise, we have to fold it down, they have to rise again a couple times before they go in the oven. When we move into lean doughs and rich doughs with yeast, we'll see how long that process takes. But this process here is a lot quicker. Vanilla and our eggs are going to go right in here, and this is nice and easy. They're just going to get mashed and mixed right together. So after these 2 eggs and 3 bananas go in, we're still letting that come together a little bit. We have our flour, our salt, and our baking soda in this bowl, which we are going to alternate with sour cream. Now this recipe calls for a half a cup of sour cream. I divided that into 2 quarter cups. My reasoning for that is I'm going to do flour, sour cream, flour, sour cream. I'm going to do 3 additions of the flour, dry ingredients mixture, and 2 of the sour cream. By pre-portioning this into 2 quarter cups, I know with each of those 2 additions of my sour cream, I'm getting a quarter cup in there. Now, if we look in the bowl, we'll notice this has kind of come together, but not exactly like we were creaming for cookies or cakes. And you're going to notice when I put the eggs in there, and the bananas, which we have mashed up, the vanilla, it's going to look a little more wet and a little more runny than, say, our normal creamed items. And again, what we want to be concerned with here is scraping down the paddle attachment, scraping down the side of the bowl, getting that all together. Now, some quick breads you'll see in recipes if you come across, you can mix them straight in a bowl with a spatula. The biggest issue I have with students and with people mixing quick breads is they tend to overmix them. When we get into biscuits, when we segue into biscuits, you'll see also that the batter and the doughs are just mixed till they come together. Everybody thinks, well, I gotta mix it just a little bit more. Not the case. Now, if we look at our bananas and our sugar and our butter here, you notice it has all come together, but it doesn't look like, say, a cake or cookie batter after it has been creamed with the sugar, the butter, and the eggs have been added. So now we're ready for our dry ingredients here. And I'm going to add about a third, because we're going to do 3 additions of the flour or dry ingredients to the bowl. So then next time when I go back, I just draw a line, I add half of the flour, and it gets incorporated. Again, medium, low speed. We just want to pull that together. Here's where a lot of kids and students and people make mistakes, is they let this keep going. Now you'll notice I'll shut it off now, although we still have flour on the side of the bowl. We're going to scrape that down. And somebody had asked me once, Chef, is this when we put the sour cream in? Well, I don't want to see any visual signs of flour left here. So if I could just stir it in with my spatula, that's totally fine. I don't have to turn the mixer on. Again, this is a quick bread. It's a little more sturdier than, say, your some of your cakes. So here's a quarter of my sour cream, quarter cup that is, which is exactly half of it. And here's the other thing. Also with the sour cream, we're going to want to make sure that's incorporated. Because what can happen if we have streams and streaks of sour cream left in there? Well, it doesn't bake out. And I'm sure some of you have done that in the past. You notice you'll cut into a quick bread, a banana bread, a pumpkin bread, and you'll see these little dots of sour cream. That's because it wasn't properly incorporated when we were mixing it. So this happens to be. So now I'm going to go back to a third of my flour, which now would be about half of my flour. And we're going to get that incorporated. It really is that quick and that simple. It's not that complicated. Usually people complicate it. It's not a 2-stage cake where you're foaming whites and folding them in. Now again, as I said with cakes and cookies, if you remember, the more stuff we put into that bowl, the larger the volume in there, the more pushes stuff to the side. And if you see this flour on the side, we know the paddle's not going to mix that. That's another common mistake students or people will make, is they're waiting for that to get incorporated, and that paddle's never going to reach that. So eventually what happens? It ends up getting overmixed. So now we see no visual signs of flour there. I'm going to add my last quarter cup of sour cream here. And I'm going to take the spatula, I'm going to scrape down that spoon because I want every bit of this to be accounted for, because you know when we bake it's more of a science and every bit of ingredient counts. I can't compensate afterwards like I would in cooking, seasoning something. So if I stop it there, you'll see streaks of sour cream. Some people would stop there. That will not cook out when you cook this cake if you left it that way. So we let it go another couple seconds, and you notice I'm only going a couple seconds there. The rest of that I'm just scraping down, kind of folding in with my spatula. So we're ready for our last addition of flour. You notice we had 3 additions of flour. This is being the third, and 2 of the sour cream. And we alternate. Now what we're going to do with some of this is we're going to add, you could add walnuts, chocolate chips, I suppose raisins or any type of nuts here if you want it at the end. Always add it at the end. Why? Because if you remember when we did cookies, we want to protect the integrity of that product. Adding chips and nuts early in the mixing process could crunch those up, and we don't have the texture or integrity of them that we would normally have. Now you'll notice I still have some flour left here in the bowl. Rather than running this paddle continuously, I'm just gonna take my spatula, fold it down because I have to scrape the bottom anyways to make sure. And you'll notice this is a very somewhat wet batter, but quick breads, quick mixing, quick method. Now I'm gonna take my chocolate chips. I'm just gonna fold those in. I won't even use the paddle. I'm just gonna fold these in. And then this is ready. My oven, obviously, we preheat our oven in the beginning. I'm gonna take my 2 prepared pans. And here's another place where students or people make mistakes. They just start pouring batter. Okay, you need a uniform measure. It could be a measuring cup, it could be a spoon, it could be a spatula. In this case, it's a portion scoop or an ice cream scoop. And scraping it against the side of the bowl is going to ensure that I have an equal amount in each one. So I'm going to start with 3 scoops in each one. These are gonna go in the oven. We're gonna start with about 35 minutes. Again, we're using a home oven. I'm not at school or work where I have much stronger industrialized commercial ovens. So I have 3 in each. And I'm gonna make sure it's all in there. And I think I'm going to get 1 more of each one. So that's a total of 4. Now the last bit I have there, I'm gonna take my spatula and then either a smaller scoop or some spoons. If I was in school, I'd put these on the Baker scale or the balance scale. The left side equals the right side. Everything equals out. But here I'm not, so I gotta get another spoon. And we're gonna get a scoop of each. Maybe 2 in each. And now you'll notice an equal amount in each, and we're gonna do our ooh it's hot, just so we redistribute any air bubbles or pockets that are in there. And then we're gonna put them in middle shelf, never on the bottom. And we're gonna let them go. We're gonna check them in about 35 minutes. And then when they're done, we're gonna let them cool for about 15 minutes before we take them out. Check for doneness, and then we could enjoy them.
Okay.
So after about 35 or 40 minutes, we're gonna check to see if we're done. And as we remember from our last few lessons, we know it's done because as food cooks, it naturally shrinks. So it recesses in from the side. That's one way. We tap on it, our hand doesn't go through it, which is a second way. And our third foolproof way, we get a cake tester or a skewer into the center, comes out clean with a few moist crumbs, and then we're done. Now we'll let these sit about 10 or 15 minutes. Then we'll take them out of the pan, because if we tried to take them out now, it would be too hot and they're likely to stick. In 10 or 15 minutes, we could take them out to be a little cooler, and we could try them. So if we cut into it, you could see the middle nice and moist, and you can see the chocolate chips we put in there, ready to eat.